Hey guys, I hope everyone is happy and healthy at home, and I hope you stay that way. I miss seeing you in class. We've spent a lot of time getting ready for these different difficult times that we're teaching in, but we're going to muddle through this. So today we're going to talk about the Scarborough Reading Rope. The Scarborough Reading Rope was put together by Hollis Scarborough, and she was a psychologist that was working with parents to try to help them understand the multifaceted components of reading. And so she used a visual to help them understand all the different components that go into reading. You have this handout on Blackboard, so please follow along as you can. It says, according to the reading rope metaphor, skilled reading is like a rope woven of many strands. At the top are multiple language comprehension strands of background knowledge, vocabulary, grammar, semantics, verbal reasoning, and knowledge about literacy itself. For example, how a book is organized and the difference between fiction and nonfiction, formal and informal writing, and a letter and advertisement. At the bottom are some word recognition strands. Awareness of sound structures of words, the ideas that the letters of the alphabet represent sounds, and the knowledge of which letters and patterns correspond to which sounds, and recognition of familiar words. These twist together to form the two main strands of the rope. So there are lower and upper strands. With practice, weaving the main lower word recognition strands becomes more and more automatic until it is done effortlessly and unconsciously. And that's what we talk about with automaticity. At the same time, language skill development, practice, and life experience allows you to weave the upper strand in an increasingly strategic way. If any of the strands are weak or not tight enough, this affects the strength of the entire rope. Language disorders significantly weaken the upper strands, which is one of the reasons most children with language disorders struggle with reading, as well as with listening, speaking, and writing. So what we're going to do is we are going to put the Scarborough rope together, and remember that we really need to make sure that children have all of these skills and that they understand the importance of putting these all together. Now, as we talk about this, the three strands of word recognition, which are phonological awareness, decoding, and spelling, and sight recognition, are the basis. They are the foundation. So we have to make sure that children have those skills and have those to the level of automaticity. So here we go. A friend of mine named Carolyn Gore, who was an International Dyslexia Association accreditor when we went through our accreditation, I guess about 5 years ago, did this with us to help us understand a little bit more. And she used pipe cleaners. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. She used pipe cleaners with different colors to help it stick in our minds. And so that's what we're going to do today. And so what you will need are 3 pipe cleaners for the strand, the bottom strand. And those are light green, dark green, and brown. And then you will need 5 pipe cleaners for the language comprehension. You'll need blue, whoops, the blue is sticking, and then we need gold, and we need red, purple, and white. So we're going to talk through this. So the first one we're going to look at is light green, and that is our phonological awareness. So we have the light green pipe cleaner. This is our entry into reading the code or reading those words. We must understand the sounds of our language in order to know what sound a letter represents. So before we add those letters, we just work with the sounds. So that's our light green. Our dark green, it says, as we become more aware of the sounds of our language, we can progress to knowing how to spell the word. What letter or letters represent the sound? We're moving to a healthy dark green, and that's our decoding and spelling. So you move phonological awareness, decoding and spelling. And again, you want fluency at both of those levels. Then we have sight word recognition or sight recognition, and that's brown. So in order to be accurate, fluent readers, we must build a big bank of sight words. Some of these words were were decodable words. As we became more familiar with reading them, we didn't have to break them down into sounds or decode them. We just recognized them by sight, like k, at became cat. Read correctly several times became cat. Other words have to be learned by sight because they aren't decodable. We want rich, soil filled with sight words. So we have these three, and the brown is for that rich sight word base. So we're going to braid these together. Okay, so twist at the top, leave a little bit at the top, and then you're just going to braid them like you were braiding hair. So just braid right through there. There we go. And you will continue to braid and leave a little bit at the bottom, maybe a half of an inch will be perfect, but make sure you're braiding. If you don't know how to braid or you don't have your pipe cleaners, don't panic. This will just help you remember the important components of reading. Okay, so it can look like that. It doesn't have to be a perfect braid, but it's going to look like that. So I'm going to put that one down. And it says braid those 3 strands together, leaving the strands loose at one end with the light green on top, then dark green, and then brown. So we've got that. It says now we're going to look at language comprehension. So this was word recognition, and now we're going to look at language comprehension. And the first one we're going to look at is background knowledge, because you know how important that is. Background knowledge is blue because the sky's the limit when you have good background knowledge. And we know that some of the kids that we have come to school with limited background knowledge, so that's our job to make sure they have that rich background, and it may be that we have to give them that background with read-alouds and just language, talking, listening, and all of those wonderful things. We want a lot of background knowledge to pull from when we read because we know that makes it easier. Then we have gold, and these lovelies are only found a lot of times in this around Christmas time at Hobby Lobby, the gold pipe cleaners. And that's vocabulary knowledge, because vocabulary knowledge, those words are gold. We want to know multiple meanings of words as well as the individual meaning in a specific context, because we know words have meaning and they can have different meanings, and especially in different contexts. So that's our gold. Then we have red, which stands for language structures. When we're reading, we encounter sentences that are complex or pronouns that we have to keep up with. We have to stop and think or even go back and read. Thus, red for stop. So we're listening to a story or we're reading a story about Jim, and then after 2 or 3 sentences it says he. We have to remember that the he in the story is Jim because there may be 2 or 3 males within the story. So we have to keep up with that, and sometimes that's hard for children that struggle, or children that are learning to read in general. Then we have verbal reasoning, which is purple, and that is a royal skill. It's so important for being able to comprehend the text. We have to infer, we have to understand metaphors, similes, all of those different parts of our language. Sometimes teaching verbal reasoning is difficult, but it is essential for comprehension. And again, that's not something we start off teaching. That's something that we use later on when children have those skills. So it's very common for kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade student to not have those inferencing skills. And then white. And white is for literacy knowledge. And she puts on here that it's the only other color that she could find a lot of on the pipe cleaner rack, which is funny. This includes everything from print concepts to genre knowledge. So that's our literacy knowledge. So you're going to take those 5 pipe cleaners and you're just going to wind them together. Nothing fancy. Just going to line them up and you're just going to twist them. Okay, again, leaving some at the top and leaving some at the bottom. Okay. It says wind these 5 strands together, leaving the strings loose at one end. Now it says wind the braided strands and the wound strands together with the loose strands at one end. The language comprehension strands are at the top and the word recognition strands are at the bottom. Now this is one thing that I'm not going to grade anybody on what this looks like, but you're just going to wind them together. But you're still going to understand that we braided those 3 very basic components because, again, that's our foundation. So we want to make sure that phonological awareness, the decoding and spelling, and sight recognition are at that level of automaticity. So we're going to braid these together. So this shows us and helps us explain to others what the reading rope is and how complex reading is. Because again, if we have a weak link, then that is going to affect our reading skills. So when people say reading is rocket science, it really is. So just kind of keep this in mind and use this as a reminder for how important reading is. Not only how important it is, but also all the different places where reading can break down for students, no matter what the age. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I miss seeing your faces. Have a great rest of the day. You have homework for the week on Blackboard, and it is about the reading rope, and it is about the simple view of reading. And those are things that you really need to understand from this point on as your foundations class, your foundations of reading class will be part of this, as well as your class next semester, which is assessment and reading intervention. So this will all kind of stay together with you. Stay safe, stay in, and I hope to see you guys soon.